Good afternoon. It's great to be back here at the AMBA BGA Global Conference. I hope everybody has had a good year. I need to say that it feels like a very tall order to stand here after Kevin's very strong address. It resonated very much, especially because I have some teenagers at home who already try to outsource some cognitive efforts to the ChatGPT. So I'm dealing with this at the home front. And also I want to say special thanks to whoever picked the 99 Luftballons from Nana as a theme. It was my big favorite when I was 14 years old. So last year at the Budapest conference, we launched a tireless teaching assistant, generative AI-based teaching assistant for business simulation learning. And the teaching assistant analyzes the results, creates personalized feedback for the students, helps with the course creations and so forth. So we are going to be looking at some of the statistics from the first year of operation of the teaching assistant. But before we go there, I need to establish the context, because I come from an organization that is fully focused on experiential learning, especially business simulations. So anything that I talk about is related to business simulations one way or another. And those of us, or those of you who may not be totally familiar with the notion of business simulation, it's an experiential learning tool where students work in teams, run a business, see the results of the decisions, also compete against the other teams. There can be many different kinds of simulations, but typically the main reason why they are used is because they develop the holistic thinking and also help students to understand what really creates value in business. So let's go and see the... Oh, I forgot this first. Let's go and see the first, like this. So here is the slide. During the year, 4,069 instructors have got access to the tireless teaching assistant. Out of those, 1,305 have used it at least for one chat. And all this is in the business simulation context. Then 62% have used it for less than 10 chats. Then we have 10 to 50, about 34, and more than 50 chats, about 4%. And the champion of the AI assistant has done it for 257 times. Obviously, this is very dependent on how many courses the instructors may be running during the year. So it's just for the information's sake. And then the total number between the different instructors is now in about 17,000 chats altogether. Now the interesting part obviously is here. So out of those who have access, almost 68% have not used it at all. I mean, we all are familiar with the technology adoption life cycles and so forth, so no, we are not very surprised about this, but for us it's a clear signal that we still have a lot of work to do in that. Now, the good news is that the adoptions are growing. We see more and more this kind of super users inside different business schools and universities who have been using it, and they are creating a followership. They know how the systems work, and they see the good results out of it. And then, like the rock star of Gen AI in higher education, Ethan Mollick says, today is the worst version of Gen AI that you will ever use. And that takes us to the next slide, where we have seen significant, or this is just a demonstration, we see significant improvement in the Gen AI capabilities. Now, there is an example prompt here, which is a good fit with our strategy simulation used in the classroom, which says that, can you apply GE matrix / diagonal policy matrix to the results and provide me with a concrete report that I can use in the classroom to discuss and highlight the essence of the GE matrix. It is important to include some shifts from one round to another to illustrate the dynamic nature of the matrix. So the teaching assistant takes this prompt, generates the report that the instructor can use in the classroom to discuss the topic by using the concrete examples from the student results that they have generated themselves. And this takes about 200,000 tokens when we are looking at the course with 8 teams and 10 rounds. Just a couple of months ago, it would have been impossible. Now the AI assistant can do it in a few seconds with a very, very high accuracy. And we keep testing this all the time, so we know the amount of hallucinations, and it is very small in this case. Now, teaching assistant has been our first effort in the Gen AI space for a very good reason, because we have been working with instructors for more than 25 years with these business simulations. And we have always seen the apprehension from the instructor side, because they find it difficult to integrate with the course contents, and they also are unsure about how to discuss the results meaningfully in the classroom. And those who have actually done the work, analyzing the results and creating the personalized feedback, they have ended up spending quite a lot of time in that process itself. So we have felt that there is a lot of trapped value in the process. And next, I want to show you an example that I'm very familiar with. Here, we have a client using our hospitality simulation, and they have also involved industry mentors into the learning process. And now the requirement is that the industry mentors must get a briefing report after every round regarding the team that they support. Now, creating an, let's say, meaningful, useful, insightful report would take about 2 hours per team per round. So that would be rounding at about 96 hours of human labor without any AI assistant. But now with human and the AI assistant, this entire thing can be done in about 6 hours, 1 hour per round. And the quality of the report is consistently high. And we have practical experience from this, and the mentors, they are really pleased with the way that they can use the report with the students. Now, the work continues, that we want to make sure that the instructors are able to spend the time in areas where it matters most. But increasingly, we are working on applications that are facing the students. And one of the areas is that while simulations are great, but they have always had their limitations. One of the limitations is that it's very difficult to deal with any qualitative issues in the context of business simulations. You put numbers and you have the kind of structure where you make the decisions and so forth. Now we are experimenting with the Gen AI with what we call a decision analyst. And the idea of the decision analyst is that the Gen AI evaluates the team's qualitative answers that are linked to the simulation data. Then it creates a numerical result, and then it creates a qualitative feedback and justification for the score. This is not grading, I just want to be clear about. We don't try to do grading, that's not the area, but we try to involve the students like qualitatively into the simulation process. And an example that we have in this is the first example with our banking simulation with ESG decisions. So the participants there have the option to issue green bonds. And if they decide to issue green bonds, they also need to write a prospectus. And prospectus is kind of like a sales brochure that you do when you try to sell your bond. And now AI evaluates the prospectus on 6 dimensions. And here are the dimensions. It's alignment with green bond principles, consideration of market conditions, credibility of the project, financial prudence, innovation and originality, and overall quality of the prospectus. And then they can see the outcome, which in this case is in terms of the price of the bond. The better the prospectus, the better is the price. They get some justification for the score, and then they also get feedback about how that how the prospectus could be improved going forward. And this is entirely AI generated, so the instructor does not need to spend time on this. Obviously, the instructor has access to all these different prospectuses and whatever else on the back end if they want, but here we try to kind of combine the qualitative elements into the simulation process, but like with everything, there's a lot of experimentation going on, and the early results have been very, very encouraging. Now, finally, before we let Olivier take the stage, I want to say a few words about the current focus, which is very much the AI coach. And the idea is that the instructor can create an AI coach. Those of you who are familiar with custom GPTs, then this is kind of similar in the sense that you can decide the context, you can even decide the personality for the coach, and then you can assign it to the students. And each individual student in the simulation learning process has their own coach, so they can discuss with the coach in that process. And then the AI coach has access to situational data in the simulation. So this is not the same as going to ChatGPT or Claude or something else and having a discussion, but this AI coach actually knows what is going on with us in the simulation. And there can be different coaches. Some examples here: assignment coach. Quite often instructors have a strategy report done at the end of the presentation, at the end of the course, and the coach could be helping the students with that. There could be like data analytics coach that would be helping the students to play with the data analytics during the simulation learning. And then it could be the soft skills coach that develops inter and interpersonal skills. And now the situational data in the last example is, for example, that how much time each team member is spending with the simulation, how much time the competitors are spending. Are our results going up or down? So when we have the coaching session, then the AI coach kind of knows where we are coming from. And the final note, those of you who are thinking about the data privacy issues, then no worries, because the AI coach itself does not use any student information while it's working with them. So it doesn't know the identity or the personality of the student. But that's it for me. Now I let Olivier take the stage and continue with the coach. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Olivier Malafronte. I have a PhD in AI coaching and leadership competence development at the University Côte d'Azur, where I'm also teaching for the last 3 years in IT innovation, HR, leadership, professional development, and business games. I'm a certified coach consultant, and I've been a co-founder and consultant in AI coaching technologies since 2016. So here's the context. With my school, we've been deploying 2 SISM business games. The Global Challenge, which is more about finance, and then the SISM Marketing, which is about marketing strategies. And we've been, with a colleague of mine, we were 2 instructors, and we've been putting more emphasis on ESG, on sustainability on one side, and leadership for the soft skills, because our goal with SISM here was to integrate an AI coach to actually integrate soft skills development in the flow of work, so that we could simulate the environment to develop some of the, let's say, management hard skills, the planning, the finance, all these things, but also more of the leadership developments for the students. So with 2 courses, this is not yet like scientific research, we're starting it, this is more of an exploration. So with 2 courses, we've been reaching 86 students. So if you look, on the right side, the picture is quite small, but you can see that the technical team of SISM here has been doing the efforts to integrate the AI coach into the UX and into the UI, right, the interface of the students, so the AI coaching experience was easily accessible. The goal here was to test the AI coaches within the business game, as I said, and to prompt the students to share the problems, the worries, the issues, the questions that they had, and also, above all, to guide the students to reflect in the situations. My course, personally speaking, was actually integrating the use of the AI coach in the grading, while my colleague was just making more emphasis on that. So I've been integrating the grading of the students with the AI coach for 45%, another 45% for the outcomes of the business game, and then another 10% for participation. And we've been, of course, before starting the game, the business game, we've been presenting some theories and some contents to the students about what is leadership, what is coaching, what is ESG, so students could make sense about these concepts before acting on it in the business game. So here are some initial metrics. Out of 86 students, 58 actively engaged with the AI coach, right? So we had an initial 67% engagement. With my course, with the grading, of course, the engagement is rising. We have 91%, which is good. But there's another key information is that even though there is grading, we still have 9% of students that potentially didn't engage with the AI coach. So that's raising actually a good research questions that we're now starting to look at. The 100 number here is quite interesting because at the end of the course, when I was doing the evaluation of my students, when I looked at the best performers and the most engaged students, actually the data was also telling me the same story. The best performers were the ones that were actively engaging with the AI coach, and they had an average 100 messaging with the AI coach, between 60 and 120 messages, while the least engaged students actually only had 20 messaging in average. I'm going to share some of the insight from my PhD research right after in the last slides, just to illustrate some of these issues, topics. So let's look at some slide here. What are the students' topics, that students had with the AI coach? What we can see here in the slides is that the top one was actually these soft skills and kind of leadership issues. Students work in groups in the business games, and so they have a lot of issues with the colleagues' engagements, how to communicate, collaborate, convince, motivate, all these things, right? So we can see that this was the main topic, coming back when I was doing the qualitative data analysis of the conversations that I collected, from this initial exploration. And the two other topics were actually related to the topics that are meant, about the business game to be teaching to the students. So the marketing topics such as advertising, customer focus, branding, the finance, but also the strategy. So these are the topics that students were addressing with the AI coach. Now, if we look at the goals, it's kind of changing a little bit. We see that because we instructors obviously were putting the emphasis on ESG and leadership, then we can see these two topics actually being the two tops. The leadership, improve team dynamics, which was the most important, improve ESG and improve the sustainability strategy. And then afterwards, the two main topics of the business games that were finance and marketing topics. These were the goals, right? What the students wanted to solve or to address. But when we look now at the learning, so with the AI coach, in the prompt, we've been setting the method and the experience so that the coach was guiding the reflection of the students on what was the issue about, what were their goals, what were the resources that they could mobilize in the situation, and in the end, what the students were learning, what they were retaining about this conversation during the simulation game. And so here, interestingly, the topics that are actually raising as learning are the topics that are meant to be taught with the business game. The finance topic, and very precisely how to manage the profit, the marketing topics, and then the strategy, the more soft skills, topics, and then the ESG topics. So in a way, we're basically, as an instructor, we're basically matching the goal, right, of the class here. These are a couple of, quotes from students. I'm going to read them. They're quite interesting. So one student was saying, understanding why some person appear less motivated or communicate less and try to understand their way of working, trying to develop the communication inside the team. Right, this is the kind of human skill, leadership, right? After Kevin's speech, right, we have a great example here, for instance, of what we can learn from an interaction between students and AI. Another student was saying, I gained valuable insight into financial management, ensuring profitability by carefully monitoring the costs, the pricing, and the margins. These are really kind of the hard skills things, right, that the students was focused on. And the third student here on the quotes was saying, I feel a bit confident in what I'm doing, and I think that I found a solution to go through the debt. I probably identified the problem, so maybe next round we will be profitable again. And I remember there was one student that was really, the numbers were going down, down, down. She was stressed, and she was actually using the AI coach to kind of regulate the emotions and the strategy that she wanted to put in place for the game. Last slide with this kind of colored topics. This is the student's affective schema. So the affective relation to the situation. And it's quite interesting because if you look at the table on the left side, I've been doing a sentiment analysis with the topics, and we see that we have 85% of positive representation of the topics and 15% of negative representation. What does that mean? The positive reveals what students actually appreciate or learn within the conversation with the AI coach. And the negative analysis actually expose the pain points or the struggle. And so for me, as an instructor, what's interesting here is if we look, for instance, on the negative topics, marketing, advertising, it gives me, instructor and the AI coach, the information on where to put more attention, because potentially these students in these moments, they were not having issues with customer focus or branding, but they were struggling more with advertising strategies. So it's actually helping, both the AI coach and even me as an instructor to go back in my groups and to coach them on, very key topics. So overall here, what we learn is that the students appreciate the topics and speaking about it with the AI coach because it helps them to regulate their affective schemas, representations within the situation, so it facilitates the engagement and the learning in the topics. So what are the limits of this initial exploration here? Expectations. Students expect the AI coaches to be connected to the data and to be using this data so that they can ask more questions and they can be coached in the flow of work, in the flow of learning with good coaching methods and good simulation data. And it was very experimental. We could not improve the AI coach on the fly, but Cezim is actually working on this now, so we're going to deploy once again this business game with the simulation data and all the feedback that we're gathering. A few links very quick with my PhD research. Expectations is big. What I know from my PhD research is that the previous representation or perception that people have about coaching that can be defined in many different ways based on where you are, actually really impacts the outcomes and the experience of people into the coaching experience. So expectations is big. Mindsets, from one paper that I submitted recently, was analyzing coaching conversation actually between leaders and an AI coaching organizations, and we see that the coaching conversation help us to understand people orientations, aspects of the mindsets, and so we can understand whether people have some instrumental orientation to the situation, whether they want to use people for their performance, or if they're more empowering, if they have the tendency to go and help others to learn. So that's quite interesting because it can help us to improve the behaviors of the AI coach to actually make the coaching and the learning and the flow even more powerful. Competence mediation, sorry for the typo, the 2 times mediation. So basically what we know from research and my PhD is that technologies mediate the mental and emotional representations of people in situation. And so my research helped us to see that an AI coaching method actually help people change and adjust their mental models and emotional models. So this can be used to facilitate and enhance learning. And then finally, because the AI has this constant adaptation to the user's needs, then we talk about augmentation. So an AI coach experience within the simulation is actually enabling students to augment their competencies. So quick reflections, recommendations. Self-regulation in learning is quite important. As the AI, does the reflection piece and guide the reflection, we can boost the emotional well-being and the learning of students. We can, as I said, we can use the data analysis to understand the orientations and adapt the behaviors of the AI coach, but also inform the instructor so that the coaching is more effective in the classroom. Integrating data from the simulation, the outcomes, the results, can improve the way students are being coached and the way they're going to learn and apply the learnings. And then doing the, Cezim business game, for instance, is having these test rounds at the beginning before we start the real evaluation and grading. So having these, coaching tests at the beginning, I think is also something good. So students or learners can actually understand how to work with an AI coach and actually leverage it through the business simulation. Yeah, thank you. If you have questions and comments, I think we're going to sit and we can take them.
I don't want to give you hours because then nobody's going to hear what we say.
Warm greetings. Thank you very much. Very interesting. Catherine D'Amico, professor of the practice in applied neuroscience and the Executive Academic Director of the Barcelona School of Management in Barcelona, beautiful Barcelona, Spain. I have a question and a comment. Being from neuroscience and seeing that you're talking a lot about emotional well-being, student engagement, motivation, leadership competencies, this of course has a lot to do with the skills that we see more and more from earlier, Mr. Kevin Ellis was saying, we need these human skills. First, I would like to comment, they are not soft skills by any stretch of the imagination. They are probably going to be what is going to define a graduate's true competency in the future, especially in the age of AI. So we can call them non-technical skills, perhaps, but that's just a personal comment. I'd be interested to know, not so much the students, on the students' behalf, because I'm sure looking at the results you have, that they were engaged, that they seem to find it useful. More on the instructor side, on the faculty side, did they trust really the outcomes, and did they really feel that the students were actually gaining competencies through this AI assistant? I'd be curious to know about their reactions there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the relevant question. I totally agree. First on the leadership, I think they are the hard skills of management. So I'm using this term, and I'm happy I've been provoking the reaction of the audience, so that's perfect. And for the instructor, the role, talking about AI and jobs and all, it's quite interesting because you see I'm a certified coach, and so the way I teach is basically it's not the passive teaching kind of approach. I'm a coach in the classroom, right? And so it's super dynamic. I don't have the time to sit down. I'm always moving from group to group, right? And so basically I'm helping the students. So the students have the conversations with the AI coach, right? So they can do a part of the work. But then with the AI coach, what's also interesting, sometimes they can hit a wall. Actually, they really get to the crux, let's say, of the issue, right? They frame it, and then when I go from group to groups, then I can go deeper because I have that human expertise, right? And so to answer your question, yeah, I do see that there is a learning, because with this AI coaching approach and with this coaching philosophy of my courses, we enable students to do more critical thinking on the topic in the situation. And so the beauty of such simulations are actually done with real world data. There are real cases. Very interestingly, when I was the last courses, when I was starting my course, I was telling the students, look, yesterday on the TV news, have you seen we were speaking about this and this and that? So we're actually putting them into real situations. And so through this simulation, we create the tensions that are the opportunity for learnings. And through this coaching, we actually enable them to mobilize what I call schemas, their representations, and to adjust them, which is the learning mechanism that I want students to develop, right?
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Arvind Sahai from Management Development Institute, Gurgaon, India. I just want to go back to your observation earlier where you said that the AI tool in course of the business simulation guides the students through what has happened and gives them some clues, if you will, if I understood you correctly, on what has happened, and kind of adds a layer of information or insight that the student can draw on, right? So my question is essentially, so therefore, the AI tool is actually leading to a reduction in the requirement of the student to think? Would that be an accurate reflection? Because if it is, then actually it's going to lead to a reduction in learning. And the other point that I have is I wanted to link it to the earlier speaker's observation. I don't know whether the speaker is still here, where he said that in the newer context, the lack of human contact, the mentorship is not happening. And so the learning is not happening. Because now people may or may not be learning from AI. So the opposite side of the argument would be that AI could perhaps create that learning. So perhaps you can help me bridge this seeming contradiction between what was said earlier and what I'm seeing now from your observation?
Now, thank you, first of all, very much for that important question. And it is really important to clarify that we have not and we will not create an AI tool that's going to give answers to the students. That will just never happen. You know, when we talk about the kind of guidance during the simulation, we don't talk about those, let's say, cognitive activities that are required to make the decisions in the simulations. The fact is that most of the teachers are there from strategy, they are from finance, they're from marketing. They don't have time nor the knowledge necessarily to do anything on the kind of, let's say, team communication, collaboration type of elements. So the AI can help them, help the students in the process to have this kind of support, and then by using that we can capture the kind of emotions that are taking place in the simulation process. But for sure, the simulation or the AI-assisted simulation will not replace the student learning of those topics that are supposed to be learned in the process.
And through the PhD studies that I've been doing, what I see is that the interaction with an AI coach, when it's not about giving the solutions, but it's actually guiding reflection, it helps actually people to generate insights, right? Because they step back, they analyze the situation in a better way, they identify what they want to achieve, right? So they do this critical thinking exercise. And so with AI, the real opportunity is to activate critical thinking opportunity within the tension of the situation, right? So that we can actually stimulate the people to go one step further into doing good critical thinking. So it's actually enhancing the learning. And through my participants, you know, with the PhD, for instance, I've seen some managers and leaders who are actually reporting back that as they were using the AI coach that was providing them, they were seeing different reactions when they were interacting with other people at work, because speaking with the AI coach was actually helping them to develop more empathy within themselves. So they were speaking differently with others. And so this is also happening with the students, so they can do the experience of some of the leadership skills within the situation, which is key, I believe, to actually help students to be more ready for the market, because we know that sometimes organizations come back to us and say, oh, students are not ready, they're not capable of doing that, they do not think, you know. So with AI coaching, we can actually enable students to learn, maybe to bridge that gap, that we enable them to be better hired and better ready in organizations.